You're listening to Table Talks for Life, a Y for Life podcast that prepares youth to be gospel-motivated voices for life. Be sure to stick around after today's live recording to find out how you can be engaged in upholding life too. Good morning. Welcome to maybe it's afternoon for you. I don't know. It's morning for us, but welcome to Table Talks for Life. Today we are talking about life-affirming favorites, and we have our whole crew here today. I hope you'll have fun getting to know us and hearing our answers. So some of these are probably going to be a little bit funny. So just really quick, I want to introduce everybody or have everyone introduce themselves. So again, I'm Michelle, Director of Y for Life.
I'm Corey, Y for Life Assistant.
I'm Bonnie. I am the Media Resource Assistant for Y for Life.
And I'm Kate. I'm the Y for Life intern.
All right. Okay. So today we're talking about life-affirming or favorite life-affirming things. So the first thing we're going to list is our favorite. We're just going to kind of go around the round table or the square table or whatever you want to say, and talk about our favorite nonfiction and fiction books. And again, these have to be life-affirming in some way. So who wants to start us off?
Michelle, before we start, can you just define life-affirming? Because I think some people have a different definition of life-affirming than we might.
Yeah. So again, there could be a variety of definitions, but something that upholds life, something that speaks well of life rather than defaming it, right? Or that values life in some way. So sometimes something life-affirming can be something that upholds the family or something that upholds individuals. It could be a story of redemption. You know, I just, as a former English teacher, right, I think of all those stories of redemption with Christ figures. And so something that we can read this and go, yeah, this either is food for thought for life-affirming conversations, or this definitely supports what I believe about life. So, your books. Do you want me to start? Would that be
safe? I can go ahead and start with books.
Awesome. Okay.
So, my favorite, I guess, nonfiction that I've read recently, and it's one that I don't know if it's my favorite because it was one that I read quickly and just really enjoyed all of the content, or because it is one that is just very much stands the test of time in its content. But Allie Beth Stuckey's You're Not Enough and That's Okay, which talks about escaping the culture of self-love, was a big one for me, especially because I read it shortly after becoming a mom. And as a mom, there is no room for just being all about yourself because you have a little person that you have to take care of. Or now, for me, 2 little people I have to take care of. So that one has really stuck with me. And I read it it's been over a year since I read it, but that one, like I said, is the one that stuck with me the most. Fiction is a little harder for me because I haven't read as much fiction recently. But one that I think for me that I'll say is my favorite that I read about 2 years ago is by Sarah Bauman it's published by CPH, called A Flame in the Dark. And it's historical fiction, which I usually don't gravitate towards, but it's about a student who is learning from Martin Luther shortly after he published the 95 Theses. Like I said, I usually don't gravitate towards historical fiction, but this one was great because you've got some Lutheran history in there, you've got theological truths, you've got some other things going on. I don't want to spoil it for you because there are some twists and turns that take place, but it does a lot to uphold family. It does a lot to talk about the importance of community. The main character of the book is living with a different family than his own at the time. So it's one that, you know, you're building community and upholding lives there. Obviously, because Martin Luther was big about vocations, it goes into those things. So I would say that's probably my favorite life-affirming fiction book that I've read recently.
That sounds like a really interesting one. So see here, I'm going to take notes on all these favorite books that you guys have so that I'm going to look them up myself. So who's next?
So for nonfiction, I was having a hard time picking just one. So my two favorite nonfiction life-affirming books are Healing the Hurt That Won't Heal by Karen Ellison. And that is about healing women who have gone through abortions. And Karen actually started a post-abortive healing ministry called Deeper Still. So that was a really, really good read. And then my other favorite is a memoir called A Voice That Kills by Valerie Millsaps. And that was actually written by my local pregnancy resource center director. And it's about her story of her unplanned pregnancy and how now she runs our crisis pregnancy center. So that one is really, really good. I really enjoyed that. And then my favorite fiction book, I went a little bit of a different direction because I was just reading this one to my little brother the other night. But Horton Hears a Who by Dr. Seuss, A Person's a Person, no matter how small. So that one is just at the top of my mind because I just read it the other night. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's a classic, right? Definitely a pro-life book. Good. All right. Bonnie, you up?
Yeah, so for nonfiction, Corey, I had a little bit of the opposite experience where I've been really trying to get back into reading fiction lately. So I was like, oh, nonfiction, like I gotta think back. But I really like Dr. Gilbert Mylander's bioethics, which is a very sort of almost dogmatic, like going through different aspects of bioethical issues and just explaining them. And he is a Lutheran pastor. I think he's a pastor, but he's definitely Lutheran. So it's cool to have that perspective. And I will say, I remember in his older, I think the first edition of the book, he actually doesn't, I think he kind of is a little bit murky on when life begins. He's kind of like, maybe it's like 6 or 7 days like at implantation. But then in his, and I remember reading that and being like, what in the world? But in his later editions, he changed his position on that. So if you do read it, pick up the later edition, because he does affirm and argue that life does begin at conception. And then for fiction, so I picked a book that I'm just finished, which is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which, Michelle, as a former English teacher, you're probably horrified that I never have read this, but I just now read it. I was like, I really should have read this in my life. And anyway, that basically is just, well, there's a lot to it, but one of the themes is kind of the idea that just like with great power comes great responsibility. And so if you haven't read it, this very, very bright young man who's very ambitious basically creates a monster. He figures out how to spontaneously generate life. And then this monster makes demands of him because this guy has created him and he owes it to him. But he's also like, Frankenstein's monster is destroying Frankenstein's life. So, and he becomes an immoral, unvirtuous monster. So anyway, I just think that's so applicable. I mean, it was applicable when it was written, but just with all that we can do with science, and we haven't gotten there yet, spontaneously generating life. I don't think we will. But that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And we really have to think how worth is the pursuit of just greatness and just because we can, and then balancing that with the value of human life. There's all kinds of things. I just think that applies to with end of life issues, also beginning of life issues. Where are we going to get when we can remove a child from the womb, make artificial wombs or keep people alive? People are preserving themselves or whatever in hopes of being reawakened, things like that, all the transhumanism, all that kind of stuff. So I just think it has a lot to add to that conversation.
Yeah, and it really comes down to the first commandment, right? The idea that, and it's the same commandment that's broken in the Garden of Eden, the idea that we want to be our own gods when really God says, I am your God, right? And yeah, that's such a great book to talk about some of those issues. Even the monster reflects on his creation and reads the story, learns about Adam and Eve. He doesn't read it at that time. He hears someone else reading it, but he questions, well, if God is the creator of these people, of human beings, who is my creator, right? And my creator is a fallen creator. And so anyway, yeah, there's really a lot of great life issues in that one.
I love the parallels between God and humans, and then Frankenstein's monster and Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And it just kind of gives you a different perspective on being a creature, and because you're kind of watching it with yourself removed from it. And it was very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So no, and just so you know, I'm not horrified. I'm sure there's lots of people out there who haven't read it. It's a hard read, right? It's not like an easy read. You have to sit down and really, especially those first 30, 40 pages, because there's a lot of letters.
I read this on audiobook, actually. I do a lot more of that now since I don't have
Sure.
I don't have a ton of time to sit down and just read. And I was like having the hardest time keeping straight what was going on because there's so many letters at the beginning. But anyway.
Yeah, that's tough. All right,
Bonnie,
so
I haven't read Frankenstein either, so it's okay.
see, now you have to put it on your list.
Really good.
I've been holding off reading it because my high school senior one act was Frankenstein, a very modernized version, and so I know the story. I just don't want to sit down and read it.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those classics. You have your whole life to read, so so I'm going to jump in and share my favorite fiction. I actually have a lot of fiction that I would love to talk about, but I think probably the one that I return to most for just its life-affirming nature is A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. And again, that's another one where initially it's hard to get into because there's a lot of setting the scene, but it takes place during just before and then during the French Revolution, and there's some ties between England and France, and Charles Darnay, who is really from France but wants to do what is right, and he gets embroiled in a mess, and eventually needs someone to save his life. Like, he is willing to sacrifice his life for the sins of his family. And I don't want to spoil the ending, but there is just this phenomenal Christ figure in that text, one who only by the grace of God can do what needs to be done. So yeah, I again loved teaching that book and love rereading that book. It's just so life affirming. I actually think there's a couple of books too that really create great opportunities for discussions, but maybe aren't written to be life affirming, like Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men. You've got the whole euthanasia issue in there, and physician-assisted suicide that you can make connections to. And is it really better to end a person's life so they won't suffer? Or, what is the moral right here? So those are a lot of texts that I used to teach as a high school English teacher. The human condition is one of brokenness. It is one of sin, and good literature speaks to the human condition. So almost all of those things can be tied to life issues. But as far as nonfiction, I've read a lot of nonfiction lately. And I think one of my favorites, one of my favorites is Them Before Us by Katie Faust. She is a pastor's wife. Her husband is Baptist, but she declares that obviously in the opening to her book. But it really is a book about family structure and the importance of moms and dads, and how they uphold life, how the family itself upholds life. I just have really been interested in her statistics, and she does a lot of looking at statistics rather than, she just comes out and says, I'm not going to go the biblical approach, because Christians, we don't need to be convinced of this. It's others who need to be convinced of this. And so here are the researched facts. So I really appreciated her writing. Also really interested in, or really enjoying, Abigail Schreier's Irreversible Damage. And again, she is not Christian. In fact, some of the things she says, I go, I don't agree on that one. But her research on the gender issue and transgender movement is phenomenal. So really appreciated both of those books. So, well, thanks for sharing. Okay, what about your favorite life-affirming movie?
Can I just say, I was thinking of something as you were talking about the fiction portion of it. It's just, I think there's such an opportunity with fiction like you were saying, stories speak to our human condition. And I think for pro-life people, we're drawn towards the pro-life nonfiction, right? So these books that are going to teach us about these issues and present things, talk about things that pro-choice people, or people in all the life issues who don't agree with us, basically, they won't pick those up and read them. But fiction is just like what we believe is true. And so when you tell true stories, or not true in the sense of factual, but stories that witness to reality, people are really compelled by it, because basically it's just everybody reads Frankenstein and Of Mice and Men and Tale of Two Cities, and so you don't have to be a Christian or say that you're pro-life to pick these up, right? Like you're just, oh yeah, everybody reads that. But they tell the truth about human life, and they do it in a way that convinces your heart or your soul instead of just your mind. So I think it's awesome that people write these things, and they, like you said, they might not even know that they're doing it, but because it's true that life has value when you write about life, that comes out.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And I think the same can be said of film in many cases, right? There's many movies that maybe they don't intend for them to be life affirming, and yet, oh, surprise, it is. So what do you guys think?
I say my favorite movie that is life affirming and has been for a while is The Incredibles from Disney and Pixar. It's one that you don't think it's going to be terribly life affirming when you're starting it, because it's superheroes and it's like a kid's superhero movie. But thinking about it, you've got the family that's kind of not in shambles, but they don't connect. They're having their difficulties. You've got the friends that, are trying to have conversations and help, but when you want to relive the quote unquote glory days, whatever they say isn't going to help. So I think that's a big one for me. And then there's a quote in the movie, I'm trying to find it, but about how it's not weak to value life. And I think that it hits different when you're a life affirming Christian, especially from the standpoint of like, it's not weak to say like, he's going to be upset that, he thinks his family is gone and things like that. So I think it's one that for kids obviously is a good one to watch, maybe older kids. But for adults, really pulling on those like family connections and the importance of working together as a family and seeing mom and dad work together as a team. Like, I think that is such a big one that you don't see in a lot of movies anymore. So for me, I think that'll be my go-to answer for life affirming movie for a long time.
Yeah, that's a good one. And you're right. They really do uplift the family in that one. That's great. Okay, who's next?
I can go. My favorite life affirming movie is called Instant Family. It came out a couple of years ago, and it's about this young married couple who decides to start fostering, and they're really looking to foster like a baby or a toddler. And they end up with 3 children of different age ranges, and they just have no idea what they're in for. And so it's a really great film. You will laugh, you will cry. My whole family watched it. We all really loved it. So it's a really, really good one.
It sounds fun. Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of movies with foster children or yeah. So that's awesome.
My favorite, well, okay, I might give 3. I'm sorry. I had 2, and then what Corey said reminded me of a third that I watched recently that I think is also life affirming. So, okay, first of all, I think Gosnell is a really good movie. It's clearly meant to be. It's sort of like the nonfiction. I mean, it is. It's a true story so it's a true story about this doctor. I think was he the doctor in Fort Wayne, or is that near Fort Wayne?
Maybe, I don't know.
Okay, well, it might be a different story, but basically he just was performing all these abortions in totally unsafe, unsanitary, dangerous conditions. And they didn't discover it until many, many years later. Anyway, I think he's still in jail now. So anyway, it just shows a side of abortion that is not talked about because it's not favorable towards abortion. And then Bella, which is a movie that I watched for the first time at a Y for Life summit in, I think, the 2022 Life Summit. And that's about a woman who has an unplanned pregnancy and is considering abortion, but she meets this guy and he kind of shows her what his family is like. Anyway, I don't want to spoil the ending, but it's very life affirming. And that's also pretty specific to the issue of abortion. And then, Corey, when you said The Incredibles, I was thinking of Finding Nemo, which I just watched a couple weeks ago. And that first scene, I was seriously crying. I think it's just because I've had a kid now. I was felt so foolish. Anytime there's a kid parent thing in movies now, I am like just weeping. But at the beginning, when I mean the little babies, are all in the nest or whatever it's called for a fish.
Yeah.
And then like the bad fish, I don't know, comes in and I guess eats them, but it's like it's mourned as a loss, it's so clear. Like these are eggs, just like a baby in the womb, that he's lost, so many of his kids. So, and then of course the whole story of Nemo and his dad, and that's obviously like very life affirming. But just that opening scene, I think, is life affirming.
Yeah, and the crying thing, that actually is really normal.
I mean, in general, not that specific scene of that movie.
It's like it's a normal mom thing. Yeah, you don't realize that everything's going to change when you become a mom, and then it changes, and you're like, whoa, who is this new person I've become?
Movies are totally different. I don't identify as the child anymore.
Yeah.
I identify as like the side character, the mom
Yeah.
or the dad. Whatever.
I do find myself with my favorite identifying with Elastigirl a lot more than I used to, because you feel like you're stretched this way and that with everything family wise. So I understand, Bonnie. I really do.
That's great. Well, I was going to choose Bella as well for a classic life affirming movie, but there's actually some really good ones out there as well. And then I'm going to go back to kind of some of the films that have been built on classic literature. So Little Women, I think, there's so many variations on that one, but it is just a great story. Again, one that affirms life and affirms family, and shows really loving relationships and how to deal with loss, even, with death. I think of Pride and Prejudice, especially the newer version. I big fan of, a lot of those classic stories that are retold through film, just because, again, like in that one, we have this desire for marriage, right? But also in the end, a recognition that marriage really is about loving and serving, rather than being independent and witty and prideful, right? But it really is about learning to care for others and to recognize that you have a wonderful gift in someone else and an opportunity to serve them, that individuals are gifts rather than competitors. So anyway, yeah, some of my favorites, the remakes of classics. So what about TV shows? Are there any television series you would recommend?
Okay, so again, toddler mom here, total just, I don't watch a lot of TV for me anymore. Everything is to entertain a small child. Louie has been a big hit in our house. And that one is surprisingly life affirming because it's a family interacting as a family. And I think the thing I like about it most is they don't portray the parents as idiots like a lot of kids shows do. They're competent. I mean, they're dogs, not humans, but they're competent. And they show the dad like actually interacting with the family. And there's a lot of times in the show where he's like, I want to sit down for 5 minutes. And the kids are like, no, let's play. And he gets up and plays with them, which is something you don't see. And I love it so much. I also love it tackles some more, I don't want to say tough issues, but for kids, there are things that you want to talk about. So mental health, there's a child in the show, they're all dogs, but there's a kid that has ADHD. And so, talking about how interacting with him and that, and then, there's allusions to miscarriage and infertility. There are discussions of, bullying, things like that. So things that are life affirming, but are done in a way for kids to understand. And as a parent, I also really appreciate it because I feel like I didn't have that in TV shows when I was growing up. I will give the caveat of some episodes, it's like, this is probably not the most life affirming thing. They allude to evolution in one of the episodes, but if you can look past those things, overall, as an adult, I think it is great and wonderful. And for kids, it's just, fun stories, and they're playing, and they're short. They're only like 8 minutes long. So you're not stuck watching it for 30 minutes, which I appreciate as well.
Yeah, Corey, you're totally like going to make my choice look bad. I'm just telling you, just heads up.
Oh, I was gonna say my other choice, so the one that I do watch for myself is Monk, which is about an OCD detective. And that one is, again, life affirming in different ways because it's someone who struggles with mental health and those sorts of issues and just trying to live in the world. But I think it's life affirming because they do include him in things and they try to help him through his struggles. So that one is for me, and I think of it as life affirming, but I don't think it is the most life affirming answer, which is why Bluey is my number one choice.
It's a good choice. Good. All right. Who's next?
I'll just say I could not even come up with a TV show. So I do watch Monk, or I guess I used to watch Monk, so if that counts. But I just do not watch TV shows, so.
Yeah, I remember like there were times, years, where I did not watch TV shows. So you're it's totally okay. How about you, Kate?
I'm with Bonnie. Like, I could not come up with one that I thought was good. I don't know. I don't watch a lot of TV either, so.
All right, well then it's up to me. All right, so Corey, so in contrast to the parents not being made fun of, I'm going to throw out there Everybody Loves Raymond. It's it's one of the favorites in our household because there's just some silly things that happen. What I love about it though is that it shows the family, and the family stays together, right? There's trials, there's things that people do that you're like, duh, like, what did you do? And especially things that Raymond does that you think, oh man, you're going to get in trouble for that. And yet Deborah stays with him, right? And they've got these like, these in-laws that live right next door, right? Deborah has in-laws that live right next door. And so you have this picture of extended family too. And you can see there's some humorous conflict, but ultimately there's also a lot of love. And so I appreciate that the opportunity to laugh at ourselves, maybe laugh at some of the choices we make. But also, I think it's also kind of fun to think, oh gosh, I'm so glad I have a husband that doesn't do that. But yeah, it's fairly wholesome and definitely family affirming. I think also the one that I do watch, and again, I don't watch a whole lot of TV because again, just time restraints, but I have kind of gotten into Miss Scarlet and the Duke on PBS, and it's again kind of set back in old Britain, like I think maybe early 1900s, maybe right around there. But I'm really bad with dates, so I couldn't really tell you for sure. But it's kind of like a murder mystery, and it's a woman whose father obviously loved her a great deal. Was a single dad and was a detective. And so when he passes away, she takes over his detective agency, and just some of the things that she does. And in order to bring justice and to uphold those that are looking for that justice. So it's also got a little bit of comedy and a little bit of intrigue. So, but yeah. Okay, so what about activities? What's your favorite life affirming activity?
So I am understanding this as like what kind of activism type thing. So maybe not what I do at Y for Life, which is very hands off, very not interpersonal. So I love getting out and volunteering. So I haven't been able to do that as much since well, since having James, but also since moving, I kind of had my connections, and I haven't remade those yet. But like in college, we would volunteer at a resale store that all their proceeds, actually, it's an RSO of the LCMS. What's a place of refuge is the organization. And so that was super fun because it's fun to be with, your group of friends, and then you go and like just sorting clothes, but that you're helping an organization that is helping women and their children. And also babysitting. So like if there's an event going on, like my church does a parent university where families who kind of need help getting on their feet come and they take parenting classes as they're expecting a child, but usually they have other kids with them, like older kids. So they can come in, and when I was younger, I would watch them because they need babysitting during that time. And just because it's so hands-on and you just get to see the fruit of like why these people are in the class. And so.
Great. What about you, Kate?
I kind of took it the same way as Bonnie, and I said volunteering as well. That was kind of my job on our life team last year, was to organize all of our volunteering events. And so I had a lot of fun with that, picking out our different service projects and things like that. And I've also been really involved with my local pregnancy resource center here in Tennessee, which is just one of my favorite things, is to go there and just serve them in whatever ways they need served. So that's my favorite.
Awesome. Corey?
So I have two very different answers, one on the activism side and then one on the, more personal side, not so much with organizations. So again, volunteering for me was a big one. I haven't gotten to do as much of it recently, but just a couple things that stick out to me. When I was in high school, we did a lot of volunteering. There was a homeless shelter in my hometown, and there's actually the same one here in our current town. So hopefully I get to volunteer with them soon. They're in the process of a lot of shuffling, so I don't want to reach out while they're in the middle of transitioning and new locations and all of that. But it was always fun to kind of get to talk to some of those people who needed a place overnight to just stay and just interact with them. And then one of them that we got to do while we were living in Kansas City was work with a group called Cornerstones of Care, and they take in kids who are kind of in the foster system, just as some of them are there overnight, but some of them it's a day program where they just need help and support and community. And so we had a kickball game with them. That was really fun to get to just kind of play kickball with a bunch of kids who just really want community and really want family and love. So I don't have anything like that close to us now, unfortunately, but that was a fun volunteer opportunity and something different while we were living in Kansas City. On the more personal side of things, I love to cook. So anytime I get to cook for someone else, whether it's new parents who are adjusting to life with a baby, or we have friends here that occasionally one of them will be gone. So if I can cook dinner for them to make life a little easier, they've got twin toddlers. So, it's a handful when you've got two kids the same age, and, just being able to uphold lives and uphold family in that way of just, I have a little bit of extra time, or I have the things on hand to make a meal, so I can do that for someone else. And I guess, I don't know how I want to say this. It's upholding lives, but it's a completely different way than the normal volunteering, because it's taking more time out of your schedule or more resources out of your pocket to do a meal for someone. And when I don't have many other volunteer opportunities currently, that's what I like to do.
Yeah, there's so many opportunities to serve outside the home and to volunteer at organizations, and like the three of you, that I have enjoyed doing that. I really actually love creating opportunities for others to do that too, like coming up with an idea for us all to do it together. I love doing big group projects, right? And whether it's a diaper drive or let's all bundle those diapers or the tie blankets or those sorts of things. So that is a joy. When I was thinking about life affirming activities, I was thinking about, in particular, my family. How do I affirm life for my family or my friends? And so, Corey, you said cooking. I would say one of my favorite things to do is is to spend time with individuals and really to talk, to listen, to sit and chat. And actually usually with my family, with my kids, when they were growing up, one of my favorite things to do was to take them on a walk. We would go on a walk, and that was like 30 to 45 minutes of just mom and son time, and catching up on their life, right? Asking them questions, giving them an opportunity to converse and just to really hear them. And so that's still to this day one of my favorite things to do is to do a walk, or to do a chat, or to go visit, or to check in on my parents and how are you, and have my mom tell me about all of her crafting stuff that she loves to do. So there's many ways that we can uphold life. So all of those activities work. What about Bible verses? Favorite life affirming Bible verse?
So my favorite life-affirming Bible verse is from Job 33:4, and it reads, "The Spirit of God has made me, and the breath of the Almighty gives me life." So part of my job for Y for Life is writing all of our life snaps for the whole year. So that means reading through all of the verses and finding them. And as I was doing that this week, I was just thinking about like how many times the word life is actually used in the Bible. And so I was looking that up, and I never found like an actual consensus, but it's somewhere around like 450 times, which is pretty impressive. So
Yeah. And makes sense. We have a God of life, right? And so it makes sense that it would appear frequently. That's a good one.
If I'm allowed to be this cliche, I went with Psalm 139, 13 to 16, which I will read, although I'm sure everyone knows it. It's, "For you formed my inward parts, you knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, my soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there were none of them." And that one, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but I just loved the language of like knitting and intricately woven, just how involved God is in our creation.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in on that too, because that actually was my favorite as well. And not only for the knitting, but for the book, right? The idea that our lives have been recorded, that the God knows the beginning, the first day of our life, and the last day, and that He purposely chooses us for this time and this place, right? Chooses to create us. But I think also just Genesis 1 and 2, the story of God's intricate forming and formation of His people, of humanity, and how much effort and like handiwork, right? He didn't just speak us into being, but He actually forms us. He takes His time with human beings, and that gives every life value. But I think it's an important one to remember because it shapes our identity, which the world is constantly attacking. So, yeah. How about you, Corey?
I'm scrounging to look up the second one so I read it correctly, but I have two because I couldn't pick just one. And both are going to speak to the importance of family and in that a little bit, because that's kind of where I've been recently, is upholding family. So the first one is Proverbs 22:6, which is, "Train up a child in the way he should go, even when he is old, he will not depart from it." From a biblical perspective, that means training up in faith and that, but I also think that in the world that we live in today, you see a lot of kids that don't have a strong foundation with their families and a strong foundation with their parents. And so from a secular perspective, even just being the family unit and training them up that, there are people here to uphold you, to affirm you, to be there for you as you grow up so that you have that support system as you go on. I think those are things that I think about with that verse. And then the other one that has really stuck out to me recently is Psalm 127:3, that says, "Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb a reward." So thinking of children as a gift and that they come from the Lord, they're not accessories, to use a popular influencer term. A lot of them are treating children as accessories. I think Katie Faust talks about that a lot as well with her work. But also they're to be cherished. And I think you see that a lot with people who don't want to be parents, you know, people who, you know, the surprise pregnancies, the unexpected pregnancies, you see that a lot of, well, I'm not ready for this, so I can't deal with it. Like, I think it really helps when you reframe and think, no, these children are a blessing from the Lord, and it might not be the timing that we were expecting, but everything is good in God's time, not mine. So those are two things that I think of with that verse as well.
Excellent. Okay, we're moving on. I'm going to pair the next two, podcasts or music. Your favorite life affirming podcast or your favorite life affirming music? Kate, you're up first.
My favorite life affirming music is a band called Drew Holcomb and the Neighbors, and they have a lot of songs about family and just positive. It's just a really positive, uplifting music. And his wife, Ellie, is a Christian artist, and she has a song called Wonderfully Made that's based on Psalm 139. So I really love that song. So that would be my favorite.
Very cool. Okay. Bonnie or Corey?
I can hop in. I will go with podcasts. I like to listen to Issues, Etc., which is not really I mean, it is like it talks about all kinds of theology, but oftentimes has people specifically to talk about life issues in the news, abortion, gender stuff, I think especially. And then I also like the Lila Rose podcast. So she's the founder of Live Action, and she's a really wonderful example of leading with love and being a winsome speaker. And she has a podcast where she just has all kinds of people on to talk about all kinds of things, family, obviously, abortion, those kinds of things. But she does more. So her work with Live Action is obviously very specific, but then on her podcast, she does talk more about like faith and just life in general. So she's very life affirming.
All right. I'm going to go with music because I have not gotten to listen to a bunch of podcasts like I would like to. I really like the band 21 Pilots. It's an unconventional life-affirming choice, but they talk a lot about the importance of mental health. And I think the song that really resonates with me recently has been from their album Trench called Neon Gravestones. And it's about how we shouldn't glorify suicide and we shouldn't glorify those people that, choose that to be their end. And the line that really sticks out to me at the end is the one where they say, find your grandparents or someone of age, pay some respect for the path that they've paved. And this is the one that gets me every time. It says, to life they were dedicated, and that should be celebrated. And I mean, I don't know, working for Y for Life and Lutherans for Life, that really sticks out. But that one, it gets me every time I listen to that song. So I think that would be my favorite life-affirming music. And it also helps that they're both Christian and that they don't take the conventional means when they are producing their stuff. So
yeah, big fan of 21 Pilots as well. I was like thinking back to some of the stuff I used to listen to when I was younger, like Jars of Clay. It's totally going to date me, right? But so I think most of the music I listen to today, I think some of it is very life affirming, but I think probably I do more listening to podcasts. So the podcast I really enjoy, the truth of it. It is a guy who's like from Australia. He's part of the Australian Christian lobby. And he really just uses a biblical perspective to talk about life issues. And he often covers things that are going on in America even. I also like the Life Has Purpose podcast by Ryan and Bethany Bomberger. So I've listened to a number of theirs, and then also Issues, Etc. Really, like Bonnie said, they have a lot of different speakers on different theological topics, but a lot of life issues come up there. So big fan of podcasts and a lot of listening while I'm driving or doing other things. So yeah. Okay, I'm going to pair the last two. I think we're going to skip one of these, unless you can do it really quick. Favorite life affirming food?
I had a thought for this. I'll jump in real quick. Anything we can grow in the garden, it is a good steward of the earth. We can share with others, and it's usually pretty healthy. So that's my answer.
Excellent. Any others?
Mine is shared meals. So I think that it's a thing that we kind of have thrown by the wayside or don't always see the value in, but it really brings people together and gives everyone a place to have shared meals together as a family or inviting guests into your home.
Yeah. Anything from you, Kate?
I think mine was just some kind of beverage, like sitting down with a cup of coffee or something is a lot of times something you can just grab someone and sit down and have a good conversation with them. So that was my answer.
Yeah, I'm big on the shared meals too, the family meals, the celebratory meals, whatever it is. That's great. Yeah. Okay. So what about your favorite gift to give and your favorite gift to receive? Last one.
So are these supposed to be pro-life related or just in general?
Yeah,
Pro-life.
so they could be, whenever we give gifts, that those are very often life affirming gifts, right?
Okay.
They might be celebrating their birthday or celebrating some event or just a gift out of friendship. So, yeah, what do you think?
Well, I had my favorite gift to give as baby shower gifts. I absolutely love, like, when I find out someone is pregnant, same with weddings too. I like go on Amazon and search their name and I'm like, do they have a registry? Because I'm just so excited. I love looking at what they picked out and it's just, especially with babies, so exciting. It's so exciting to be the one making the registry and then I love getting to go on and find people's gifts for them. And my favorite gift to receive, okay, well, this is also a pro-life answer. I said pro-life merch. So I have like none of it, so I need to start asking for it. And I just think it's awesome. I love that a lot of places are making like very visually pleasing, like cool t-shirts and hats and things like that. So that you can witness just out and about, going about your day.
And just in case anyone's listening to the podcast and wants to buy something for Bonnie, we have this really awesome swag store connected to Y for Life. You can see the button for it at yforlife.org. So, just in case.
Yeah, and feel free to just email me and ask me for my address. And I'm not
Size and
gifts.
address. That's right. All right, who's next?
I'll jump in. Gift to give. Yeah, I'll tag off Bonnie's. I really like putting together gift baskets for weddings or baby showers, especially baby showers, and especially when the couple, I don't know, recently we've had a lot of friends who have struggled to conceive. And so just, I don't know, getting to be excited with them. And so that was one that recently I got to put together a gift basket for some friends of ours who are having twins this month. And so I like probably went a little overboard, but I was like, I get to buy two of everything. And so that was fun. Gifts to receive. I like the just because gifts. It doesn't have to be anything big, but like, oh, I was thinking of you, so I got you this. My mom has been really great about that. And I think it's one that I hope to do as I get older, but just I was thinking of you, so I got you this. And it doesn't have to be anything big. It can be like my mom got me a little rubber duck one time. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. So I keep it on my desk and I look at it when, I'm feeling down. I'm like, oh, my mom loves me. So stuff like that.
All right, excellent. Kate.
So I'm a college student, so I don't have a lot of financial resources when it comes to giving gifts. My favorite life affirming gift is to volunteer to babysit for free for single moms or new parents and be like, just go grab dinner, go take an hour by yourself, whatever you need. So I can give the gift of time. I do have that to give to them. So I love doing that. And selfishly, I love babies. So it benefits everybody. And then my favorite gift to receive, gifts aren't really a big thing for me. That's not my love language, but quality time is. So kind of like we talked about earlier, I love to like get a cup of coffee with someone or like go for a walk and just talk about all things life and faith. That's kind of my favorite gift to receive. So
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you brought up those love languages because gifting actually is one of mine. And so I love figuring out what it is that someone else loves, right? Like what is it that they really love doing? What is it that they enjoy, or what is it that they need? And watching for those moments. And so yeah, I love looking for the perfect gift, right? The one that I think, oh, they could really use this and really enjoy it, whether it's for their family or for themselves. So it's hard to say that there's one gift that I love to give because I do try to know the person, or at least give them something that will be useful. And I think the same would be for me too. Like, there's not usually a list of things that I desire or anything like that, but that, kind of those surprise gifts like Corey was talking about, that someone noticed that I liked something or that I needed something. Those are the best gifts for, to receive on my end. So, and very life affirming, because, I know they know who I am. They've taken time to get to know me. So, yeah, I just appreciate those. So, okay, I think our questions are over, our get to know you questions. So thanks to all of the listeners who hung in there to the end of the podcast to get to know us. We hope that you have many opportunities to celebrate life affirming books and movies and podcasts and food and gift giving, and that you will be able to share that with others. If you are enjoying the podcast, please let us know. We would love to know if this is something that we should continue in the future. But thanks for joining us today, and we hope to see you again next week. Thanks for joining the Y for Life team for today's Table Talk for Life. We hope you're better equipped to address today's life issues and uphold the people God has placed in your path. Be sure to check out our programs and resources at yforlife.org. or email Michelle at yforlife.org to find out more about how you can be a gospel-motivated voice for life. And we hope you'll join us next time, right here at Youth for Life Podcast.